G'day folks, Paul here from Pinnacle English Learn in Sydney, Australia. Look, I was just chatting to another teacher about IELTS and achieving a high score on the IELTS exam. And what we did discuss was that, it's definitely achievable to achieve up to a 7.5 on the IELTS exam by yourself for most candidates who already have a really good command over the English language. The issue that we have found is that when students need to achieve an 8.5 or even higher for that IELTS exam, that they do tend to have some difficulty and they fall down in the areas of speaking and particularly writing. It's very achievable for candidates to get an 8 or even higher for the listening paper and also for the reading paper. And it's certainly doable to get, higher marks than a 7.5 for speaking and writing. But for most non-native English speakers, they tend to fall down in the speaking and writing section if they need an 8.5 or even higher. So there's just a couple of reasons for this, and I'll go through this in a second. So in order to achieve, higher than a 7.5, in other words, an IELTS 8 or higher for speaking and writing, the challenge is that, students or candidates really need to have a sophisticated command when they produce the language when it comes to speaking and writing. And by sophisticated command, I mean they've got to be like an educated native English speaker, not just a regular native English speaker, particularly when it comes to writing. You've got to have the same ability or a comparable ability to an educated native English speaker. So you need to be able to produce those complex sentences and ideas and express them clearly. And one more thing, you need to express them clearly without grammatical errors. And what we found is that even, students who have a great fluent ability to produce English when it comes to speaking and writing, even though they're really fluent and even though they're quite accurate, they do have some systematic, and one would call them ingrained errors when they produce English. If they speak English as a second language, they tend to have those ingrained errors that don't necessarily impede communication. In other words, they don't necessarily stop other people from understanding what they're trying to say. And these errors include, but are not limited to, prepositional errors and, errors where there's an omission of articles. In other words, they don't stick an article in there when there should be an article. I'll give you a classic example. There are plenty of people who speak English really fluently and relatively accurately, but they don't include, the definite article the when they speak. For example, I'm going to beach tomorrow. It should be I'm going to the beach tomorrow, but they'll just very quickly say I'm going to beach tomorrow. And you won't even pick it up sometimes if you're just listening to them casually. But, an IELTS examiner will. And if they keep making those systematic errors, in other words, not including an article when they're supposed to, then they probably will get marked down from, an 8, an 8.5 to a 7.5. So, that's an omission of an article. So an example of a prepositional error might be, to depend on or dependent on. So, for example, the health of the economy is dependent on unemployment. So that's a pretty complex structure, and I've used the word on or the preposition on following dependent. But, a common mistake might be the health of the economy is dependent of unemployment. The health of the economy is dependent of unemployment. And if you say that pretty quickly, some people may not pick that up. Or even if they do pick it up, it doesn't impede communication. In other words, it doesn't stop the listener from understanding what it is the speaker is trying to say or even trying to write. So, that's an example of a systematic or ingrained error. Somebody, using of instead of on for depend on or dependent of instead of dependent on. So that's an ingrained error or a systematic error that a candidate or a student may have and may make. They may not even realize it at all, and they may be marked down for it when they do an IELTS speaking exam, or even if they use it in an IELTS, if they use depend of or dependent of in an IELTS writing exam. It does come down with prepositions to collocation and practice. And sometimes, a mistake could be made and, it mightn't be picked up because people still understand what you're trying to say. So those ingrained or systematic errors, as they're called, will actually bring students down when it comes to that speaking and writing exam. So there's some information, and look, that's the reason why students don't get, an 8, for example, or an 8.5 in each and every single section of the IELTS test, or in each and every skill. So they'll do it, for reading, and they'll do it for listening. But when it comes to speaking and writing, they may fall down if they have those systematic errors, or if they don't have a sophisticated, educated command over the English language. That's where they may fall down in those speaking and writing skills. And, that's where an IELTS trained teacher comes in and really helps a student who's almost there to achieve, higher than a 7.5, particularly in those two skills of speaking and writing, and particularly in the writing section. Yeah. Hope that helps, guys. Paul from Pinnacle English Learn in Sydney, Australia. Just thought I'd communicate that with you guys. Hit me up if you have any questions. Take care, take it easy, and bye for now.